Everyone, a very warm welcome to our second Promax Africa 2020 webinar. We're delighted to have you here this morning. It seems like there is a great attendance, so very excited to get today started. A couple of housekeeping notes before we get Owen on the line, but awards are now open. Please look out for 7 new award categories that have been added, 2 of which are absolutely free to enter, and those are for work never been seen before. And then also a reminder that Pitch Me is a resource that is new to Promax Africa 2020. If you or anyone that you know has been affected by retrenchments or currently looking for new opportunities, please go to the promaxafrica.tv website, go to the Pitch Me sections, follow the instructions. You've got to submit a headshot, a brief CV, and a showreel of your work, and you can be featured on the website for the community to have a look at. So without further ado, we'll get straight into it. Our guest this morning is Owen Mclachlan from 4 Creative. He is the creative director for 4 Creative, which is the in-house agency for Channel 4. I know it's work that I've watched for years and always admired, always very inspiring. He's also a children's book author, which is interesting. So Owen's going to be talking to us about how to be brave, a brave creative, and do brave work, which I think we touched on with Tim briefly 2 weeks ago. So over to you, Owen.
Thanks very much, Samira. Good morning, everyone. It's a bit early on a Monday morning to go through something as kind of a big topic like this with hopefully some provocative stuff, but let's give it a go. I've got a little presentation that I'm going to share. Got some videos, got some pictures. I'm going to keep it interesting on a Monday. Let's see. So, my name's Owen Mclachlan. As you might have guessed from the weird name, I was born in Ireland in this tiny town called New Ross. Not quite as long ago as maybe this postcard was made, but I mean, probably in that region. And yeah, really small town. And I left there and I went to university in England in Yorkshire, where they make the best tea. I've got some of it here now with me. And I met my wife there. We have a kid. He's 2 years old, Bob. That's a picture of him doing a poo on me. So if you hear some screaming or anything in the background, then it's probably my wife getting pooed on or something like that. So apologies. That's the face he pulled as he did it, which is kind of terrifying. I promise there's no more baby photos. That's the only baby photo I'm going to bore you with today. And kind of more professionally speaking, after I left university, I wanted to be a journalist, and I was kind of doing work placements doing that. And at the same time, I bumped into a friend of mine, and he was at college learning how to be an advertising creative, and I'd never heard of that job before, and it sounded really fun. And he was showing me his portfolio of kind of student work, and it was really making me laugh. And so I kind of changed my plans, and I thought, yeah, I'm going to go do that course. So I went to college for a year and did an art direction copywriting course. And then I left and I went to work somewhere called Fallon, which based in London. And I wanted to work there because they did the Cadbury's gorilla ad. I don't know if anyone remembers that, but it was a gorilla playing the drums. And then at the end it said, buy our chocolate for some reason. But I just thought that ad was really cool. And I went to work there. And from there, I kind of built up a portfolio of quite traditional TV advertising, and I was more interested in doing something a bit weird. So I went to Amsterdam to work at a place called Sidley, and they did a lot of kind of experience-led advertising. So we would create an event or something and then shoot a film around that. And everyone dressed all in black, and they played techno at this time on a Monday morning. And the office, as you can see from the picture there, was very geometric and the epicenter of hipster culture in the world, perhaps. But it was really interesting to see how things could be done differently. And from there, I went to work at Droga 5 in New York, which is a place I'd always kind of thought of as being the best agency in the world. And so it was really exciting to go and work there. And David Droga is still extremely involved in the day-to-day running of the agency, and particularly on the clients I was working on. I worked on Under Armour. He was very involved in that. So it was kind of a real opportunity to learn from the person that I guess is the best at making people buy stuff. And he was a great salesman and an interesting kind of thinker as well. So that was great. And then from there, I got a phone call from Channel 4, and they had an opportunity there. And about 4 years ago, I moved back to London to work at Channel 4. And the majority of the stuff I'm going to talk to you about today relates to Channel 4. Channel 4 has an in-house creative agency called 4 Creative, and it does all its kind of advertising of programs, and all the brand work is done by 4 Creative. 4 Creative is really small. It's about 40 people, but the majority of those people are kind of, it's because 4 Creative's it's a production company and a creative agency. The majority of those people are directors and editors and people that make GIFs and manage our social accounts and all that kind of stuff. And then in terms of more traditional advertising creatives, there are about 6 of us that write the majority of the work and oversee it. So it's really small, and I've enjoyed being somewhere that size where you feel like you can make a real difference, day to day, versus being in some of the other places I've worked, like Droga 5, where, if there's almost 1,000 people, you can feel a bit like a cog. So yeah, I've really enjoyed it. And as Samira was saying, I also write children's books. So I'll touch a bit on that at the end of the presentation. But I thought while before anyone's dropped off the call, I would put in a plug for my new book. shameless advertising for my new book, Why We Can't Hug. And it's a children's book that helps children understand how social distancing works in a kind of positive way. So it helps them consider the different ways that they could be showing other people that they care about them if they can't hug them. But we'll talk a bit more about the kids' books and how that came about, and maybe how that overlaps with my work at Channel 4, maybe at the end. In some ways it does, in some ways it doesn't. At Channel 4, we're encouraged to use words like shit and bollocks, and in children's books, they usually don't go down so well. So I've said all of that, and I've been blowing my own trumpet and telling you all how brilliant I am. But the truth is, I spend most of my working week just going from meeting to meeting, worried that I don't really know what I'm doing, and that I'm an imposter and that I shouldn't really be there. And that although other briefs have gone well, this one I'm working on at the moment, this is the one where I'm going to be found out, and people are going to realize that I can't do my job properly. And I don't think that feeling ever goes away. And I think maybe that's kind of a healthy thing in a weird way, although it's not always the most pleasant feeling at the time. I think that's the feeling that keeps making you push to do interesting work and not just kind of relax. So yeah, I just wanted to say I don't know what I'm doing. But even on this talk I'm giving now, let's hope it goes okay. But yeah, I'm sure that feeling's familiar with a lot of people here. One thing that has become clear as I stumble between these meetings is that being brave is a kind of key component of all the stuff that I've been involved in that I'm proud of and that has done well and been successful, and certainly that 4 Creative have made. And bravery is a really key part of what we do, what we talk about. I'm not naturally the most brave person in either at work or in my life, and so it's something that I've had to kind of work at, I would say. I probably more easily go towards the idea that I feel that everyone wants, the idea that might kind of feel right and satisfy everyone's needs, rather than what I think's the most brave or the most impactful or that's the most provocative. And so that's something that I know that I have to work at, and we can talk a bit about today about how that kind of how to cultivate that and how to learn how to be a bit more brave. And we'll do that by talking through some of Channel 4's work. Before we do that, I found this video. It's a little bit old and it's a little bit pixelated. It was made before I joined Channel 4, but it's all about bravery and how that relates to Channel 4. And I think it's just a good way of summing up what Channel 4 stands for. because I know that although that's kind of clear to people in the UK, I don't know how much everyone else knows about Channel 4 abroad, but this is what we're about, I guess. I'll play the video. Hopefully, shout out or message if there's audio issues, but hopefully it'll work.
He found it tremendously difficult to speak. He was incredibly badly teased.
Because he didn't have a voice then, and he's got one now.
To laugh is to risk appearing the fool. To weep is to risk being called sentimental. To reach out to another is to risk involvement. To expose feelings is to risk exposing your true self. To place your ideas, your dreams in front of a crowd is to risk being called naive. To try is to risk failure. To live is to risk dying. But the greatest risk in life is to risk nothing. The person who risks nothing, does nothing, has nothing, and becomes nothing. Only the person who risks is truly free.
Channel 4 was set up to take creative risks and put its profits back into programs. We were born to experiment, born to challenge, born risky.
Very good, Mashi.
So that kind of sums up what we're all about. We were set up in the 1980s to take creative risks and be an alternative voice in the UK, and to stand up for minority groups and progressive kind of thoughts in society. So they're all things that I feel really proud about, and hopefully you'll see some of those coming across in the work that I'll share today. Some of the work's just stupid and it's just a joke, but some of it has a more serious point to be made, and hopefully sometimes we manage to do both, to kind of make a serious point but not in a serious way. And I think that's where our kind of sweet spot is creatively. So yeah, to be brave, first you must be afraid, and I've kind of stolen that from Game of Thrones. Can a man still be brave if he's afraid? That's the only time a man can be brave. So that's a pretty good quote, I think. It's okay to be afraid. That means you're probably doing something brave. So it's kind of becoming comfortable with being afraid is a better way of talking about being brave. And you can see how that's kind of worked, obviously not just in advertising, but in all kinds of creative spheres. So The Godfather, when he went in to do his audition, he decided at the last minute to stuff balls of cotton wool in his cheeks, and that's how he auditioned for the role. I'd say that was a pretty brave decision, and obviously has gone on to be one of the most kind of celebrated roles in film. But I guess there must have been a moment as he was walking through the door thinking, why have I put cotton wool in my cheeks? And I guess that's a bit like how you might feel sometimes when you're presenting your ideas to clients or to other, colleagues. It's that feeling of like, shit, maybe I shouldn't have put the cotton wool in my cheeks. But it's those kinds of crazy decisions and those acts of bravery that create things that are unusual and memorable. And I think Marlon Brando knew that. John Baldessari, he's my favorite kind of artist, I guess. He had an exhibition coming up, and he was trying to decide what to put in his exhibition. And I think there's something like 20 paintings he needed to create for this exhibition. And instead of painting scenes or portraits or even kind of abstract paintings, he decided he would just write on all the canvases, he'd just write what he wanted you to feel from the painting. Culminating in kind of the most memorable, which is just pure beauty. I think that was a pretty brave decision. I mean, you could look at it and say that's pretty stupid, but at the same time, it's pretty intelligent and credible at the same time. But there must have been a moment where he looked around thinking, shit, other people are doing Other people are trying to paint beauty, and I've just written it down. But his work is all kind of in that vein. I recommend checking him out. And not to get too highbrow with it all, Wu-Tang Clan, at a time when everyone started streaming music off the internet and it was easy to get hold of albums, they decided their new album, they'd only make one copy of it. And that's how they got everyone talking about it. And it kind of created a huge splash in the press and in the media by doing something completely counterintuitive and really brave, by only making one copy of their record, doing the opposite of what everyone else was doing. Stupid, yes. Clever, yes. Brave, definitely. So they're just some examples before I go into more kind of examples that are more relevant to us in terms of promoting TV programs and stations. So if you're not afraid to share an idea, then it's probably not good. So just like Marlon Brando with the cotton wool in his mouth, if you're opening up your presentation and you feel 100% confident, then you should probably not present it. Because the best ones you should be a little bit afraid of sharing, because you're worried that it might make you look stupid or that someone's going to get annoyed about it. They tend to be the ones that are actually worth sharing. So I'm going to talk to you today about bravery, as it's said on the title of the presentation, but I've got a different kind of definition for it I want to share with you that I think is more true and a better way to think about it. Bravery is the urge to do things you fear. So it's okay to be afraid, but it's important that you want to do things that you fear, the urge to do things you fear. And I call that the furge, the urge to do things you fear. So you should have the furge when you're working on ideas. That sounds a bit less like macho, I think, than bravery, which is why I like it. Bravery sounds very serious and like it's from a kind of Steven Seagal movie or something. I prefer the furge. Your ideas should give you the furge. And here's some stuff that we've had the furge about at Channel 4. This is probably my favorite piece of work from last year. And I'll just play it and we can talk about it after.
I'm not homophobic, but do we have to have gay kissing at dinner time?
Tell Prue not to talk with her mouth full. So uncouth.
He's too posh.
Too black.
Too much Botox.
She looks like Tom Cruise.
It wouldn't be so bad if he tried to make himself look like a normal woman.
He looks like a walrus.
It's boring.
Like, Channel 4 is incompetent on many different levels.
It's just inappropriate.
Alex Brooker's arms make me want to puke.
The arms are fine, but the back hair could do with a trim.
I mean, this just confirms my suspicion that women aren't funny. Shush!
Her outfit is totally inappropriate. Whatever.
You know nothing, Jon Snow.
They're not real athletes.
No.
The man's got sausage fingers.
Those gears need subtitles.
Hardly.
Me?
Sorry, Mo. No one's actually complained about you.
Yeah, so we kind of collected a load of complaints about Channel 4 and then used them to prove everything that we stand for, which seems kind of simple now, but there was definitely a point early on in the process where we printed off hundreds of complaints about Channel 4 and we had them stuck on all the walls of the meeting room. And the team working on the project, we all gathered in the room. And there were some pretty worried faces. I mean, it does seem like kind of a crazy thing to do, to let everyone know what your complaints are. And I think what was frightening and the kind of the fear that we had at the time was that when you saw the complaints just stuck on a wall, they weren't funny. They felt quite mean and hurtful. And I guess that's the nature of kind of online trolling and stuff. And I guess the fear that we overcame the urge that we had was that when we got the right people to say the right complaint, that it would end up being funny. And that seems obvious now, but it wasn't evident on the page from the script. So that was kind of the thing that we had to kind of overcome with Complaints Welcome. And then this one, I guess some people will have already seen this. This is the ad we did for the Paralympics in 2016, before I joined For Creative. I guess the relevant kind of fear that I have is that I spent the last year working on the next Paralympics ad, and that was a frightening experience, because you have to make it as good as the ones that have come before. And that's often a challenge working on briefs, is making sure that you're better than what's happened before. In this instance, it's going to be pretty tricky if it does happen in 2021. But for those that haven't seen it, and maybe those that have, it's fun to watch, right? So should we just play it again?
Yes, I can, suddenly, yes, I can. Gee, I'm afraid to go on has turned into, yes, I can. Take a look, what do you see? 133 pounds of confidence, me. Got the feeling I can do anything, yes, I can. Something that sings in my blood is telling me, yes, I can. I was just born today, I can go all the way, yes, I can. 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 Hey, yes, I can.
No, you can't.
Yes, I can! Are you ready? I can climb Everest. Yes, I can. I can fight here all night and never rest. Yes, I can. I was just born today. I can go all the way, yes! I can.
So yeah, the superhumans. How do you beat that? If anyone has any ideas, please email me afterwards, because I'd love to know for 2021. Incredible ad. I think at the time it was the most number of disabled people that had ever been included in a commercial, and obviously doing some incredible things. I still can't quite believe that final shot with a guy called Wheels going over the jump was done in camera. I mean, I've asked the producer about it quite a few times, and she says it definitely was, but I still have my doubts. It looks too good. So from like the biggest budget, all singing, all dancing thing in the world to a project that looks the worst. we have a show called Humans on Channel 4, and it's about robots, androids that kind of live among us. And I guess about a year ago, before coronavirus, and everyone was talking about Brexit and who should be allowed to stay in the UK and who shouldn't. We had a new series of Humans coming out, and so we created something called the Human Test, and we ran this ad on TV that we made from kind of clip art.
Every day, technology is getting more and more advanced. More and more like us. That's why everyone must now take the Human Test. This is to determine your human status. You should have received your unique human number in the post. If you haven't, don't worry. All you have to do is tell your voice assistant to start Human Test and answer all questions truthfully.
If robots had feelings, should they be granted human rights? How many hungry kittens can you hear?
It's nothing scary, so do it now to avoid further action. NSDU. Detect and protect. Start Human Test now.
So we ran that ad on national TV telling everyone they had to do this thing called the Human Test that could work out whether they were a human or a robot. And we created a voice experience that was on Google Home and Alexa. And it asked you a series of questions, but it kind of responded differently depending on what you answered. And it was quite kind of freaky, kind of as an experience. And I guess that felt, if we were afraid of that, I mean, the reason it was good, I guess, was the cultural context going on around it and kind of tying into that Brexit conversation. But the other kind of fear that we had to overcome in doing this is it was a weird way to promote a TV show. And I know that's something everyone here on the call is a challenge that we have every day. And usually it's, a film or even a trailer, clips trail for the show is the way we go. And this was, in terms of the structure of the campaign, was completely different. And that was the kind of the fear that we had to overcome. But I guess if you push it far enough and think differently and weird enough and have the right kind of join the conversation in the right way in terms of the kind of human insight and cultural things that are going on, then hopefully you produce something that's spiky enough and noisy enough that it gets the press coverage that far outweighs, what a standard film would have done, which was the case with this. It was also kind of scary for us because we'd never designed a voice experience before, and as Paul Creative, we're very good at making films, but that was a kind of a new thing for us. And like the script for the voice experience itself was an Excel spreadsheet, because it was loads of different user journeys. It was an Excel spreadsheet that was, I don't know, I think it was like 20 something pages long. It was by far the longest. It was like the size of a novel. So that was backing yourself to do stuff that you don't normally do is also part of that, having the urge, but it's also fun doing stuff you haven't done before. Here's another one of those. So for Derry Girls, that's a show about a group of friends in Derry during the Troubles in Northern Ireland. They go to a Catholic school, and it's a comedy, but it's kind of set against that background of the Troubles. And for the second series, we decided that we would go to Derry. And in Derry, there's a history of painting murals, and they are painted by paramilitary groups. So the IRA and the unionist groups will paint murals representing the Troubles, often violent, and they are kind of symbols of division within the city. And we decided we'd go and we'd paint the first one that kind of unified those two groups. And because Derry Girls, the series 1 had been such a success, it was one of those things that had kind of brought everyone together in the city, whether you were Catholic or Protestant. Everyone found that show pretty funny, and it was something for the city to be proud of. It's known kind of internationally still for things that happened quite a long time ago, and all that, the violence that happened in the 80s and things. So it was really great to create something that was I guess a sign of peace. And particularly special for me because being Irish, half my family come from Derry, so my cousins and my granny came down to watch as we were painting this. So that was just a really special thing for me, and it was brilliant. It got a lot of press coverage here in the UK and front page news in Ireland, and it was on the 9 o'clock news and in the US as well. And so that was really nice to produce something that made people think of Derry in a really positive way. And I'm very proud of that. Especially the night before we started painting, a car bomb went off about only about 20 meters just around the corner from where we were painting this. And I guess maybe that's another part of the Verge, is believing in what you're doing to the extent that even if you encounter difficulties such as that everyone on the team kind of felt strongly enough and sure enough that we were doing the right thing to kind of persevere when you encounter things that are a bit scary like that. And the bomb had nothing to do with the project. It was just an unfortunate coincidence, and no one was hurt. But I guess it was brave of Channel 4 to enter a political conversation like that is so raw still. Yeah, I think that's another part of the Verge. I think we've got a couple of projects left. This is probably my favourite of the things I'll show you today. Again, it's before I joined Channel 4. I'm sure that a lot of you guys will work in places where you have continuity announcements, so the people that introduce the shows. And I think this was just such a clever way of taking that kind of media and again doing a piece of work that shows what Channel 4 stands for, and it kind of sums up the point of the talk today as well. Just an incredibly brave thing to do, as you'll see.
There are 2.5 million people in the UK with different voices. Biscuit, Hedgehog, Biscuit, but they're rarely heard on TV. Biscuit, who else but Channel 4 would let someone with Tourette's, Biscuit, announce their biggest shows? Hedgehog, right now, Heston's Great British Food. Biscuit, Hedgehog.
Channel 4 was set up to take risks, so you have me in your living room. My name is Katie and I have cerebral palsy. Up next is The Simpsons.
Hi, I'm Matthew and I have a stammer. Channel 4 have given the mic over to me to introduce the next show. Location, location, location. To say it once is hard enough, let alone 3 times.
Hi, I'm Alex and I'm deaf. Now it's Alan Carr, who is apparently a chatty man. Not that I know anything about that. Expect strong language and adult humour.
Hello Friday night viewers, I'm Luke and I suffer with Tourette's. So I might make noises or I might swear. So me and Gordon have a lot of things in common. We both make a great creme brulee. Right now though, it's Gordon's festive home cooking.
I've got Tourette syndrome, Biscuit, which means I sometimes say seasonally inappropriate things, Biscuit, like Happy Christmas in July. Hedgehog, Biscuit. Right now on 4 though, Biscuit, Yuletide greetings are in order as we head to Lapland to join Santa and his wayward brother, Fred Claus. Biscuit, Happy Easter.
Hi, I'm Katie. I have cerebral palsy and Jack Whitehall. If you're listening, I'm single. Now on 4 with strong language, it's fresh meat.
So pretty cool to get people with communication difficulties, including Tourette's, to introduce our biggest shows was something that I'd imagine the team, you couldn't do that kind of thing without being afraid and taking a risk. And I think that's why it's so clever, and to just also have a sense of humour about it. hopefully from the things you've seen, like the Paralympics and Complaints Welcome and that, I think we kind of hit the mark best when there's a serious point in there and we are giving a platform to voices you wouldn't normally hear in different ways, but doing so with a sense of humor, because I think sometimes it can feel very like you're being preached at when people deal with those kinds of issues. So just making sure that you have a sense of humor about it, I think, is that's been the centre of the most successful work that we've done. And finally, the government asked us over the summer to create an ad that encouraged people to stay at home during lockdown. And we saw a lot of advertising that had kind of plinky plonky piano music and was very like pretentious stock footage of babies being born and stuff like that. And it just seemed like really over the top. And so we created this instead as the kind of a way of doing the opposite thing.
Britain, when was the last time you did something that really mattered with your ass? We need your buttocks. No ifs, just buts. Because we'll beat this faster. Clenched together on the sofa. Stay at home. Save lives.
So yeah, really, just like a 20-second ad using a lot of stock footage. But I'm kind of proud of that in terms of the tone that we had, and just shows you don't have to spend loads of money and do your big Paralympics ad to create something that feels memorable and fun and different. That felt brave in terms of the tone when everyone else was talking about we'll fight them on the beaches, and everything had that kind of like everyone was in World War II to when actually all that the government was asking was that we kind of stayed at home. So that was something different. And hopefully all those things display the the urge to do things you fear. That's the way to be brave. And I thought we could talk that's half the urge is half the battle. And if it was all just about doing the most provocative thing, then it would be pretty easy. And it's not just about kind of shocking people or just taking risks. The other half of the equation, which I'm not going to talk about a huge deal today, but we have touched on, is having the right human insight. So it's about knowing what to say and understanding who you're speaking to and the backdrop against which you're talking to them. Hopefully exemplified by that buts thing. Just being aware of the other communications that people are receiving and what they're thinking and what's the public mood at the moment and how do we strike a chord and how do we say something different, and all of that's kind of human or cultural insight. So it's kind of marrying that and having all that context in your head when you decide to do something provocative. So I'd say they're the two key pieces. It's having the urge and being brave, but also making sure that you're saying the right thing, and that's all about human or cultural insight. And I'm kind of running out of time a bit, but I just thought I'd talk a little bit about the kids' books stuff and how that kind of overlaps. And the truth is, it probably overlaps more in terms of the human insight and cultural insight than it does maybe in terms of the urge. Although it's still important to find a story that hasn't been told before. So, and that requires a certain amount of bravery. But I guess tonally quite different to some of the very provocative Channel 4 work. So these are some of my books. The Case of the Missing Cake. It's an alphabet book, but the cake on page C has gone missing, and it's kind of a whodunit with the bear going around accusing all of the other characters of having eaten the cake. Secret Agent Elephant, pretty self-explanatory. The Hug, that was my first book, and it's about a hedgehog who's looking for a hug, but no one will hug him because he's so spiky. And then if you flip the book round, on the other side, there's a tortoise, and no one will hug tortoise either, too hard and bony, and they meet each other in the middle and give each other a hug. So, and those two characters have come back together during lockdown here in the UK, and they have been learning what to do when they can't hug each other. And that book's called Why We Can't Hug. and then I've got one coming out next month, well, October. This book is not a bedtime story, and that's about a load of monsters that are trying to scare you, but they end up expending so much energy that they just fall asleep. And it is a bedtime story. So they're my books, and I guess probably interesting to think about how what the crossover is between kind of advertising, the advertising world, and this. And I think the key thing is having good ideas. And I carry this little green notebook around with me, and I write down all my children's books ideas. But I have the same book at work at my desk where I write down all the ideas for promos and things. So it's the same muscle in your head. These are two ideas that they won't be seeing the light of day, I shouldn't imagine. How to tell if your teacher is a giant squid. Does she look wet? Does she have seaweed in her hair? So yeah, I mean, most of the ideas are pretty bad. And I think that's also where there's crossover, is just being able to come up with a large volume of ideas. Because what I find, particularly with the kids' books, is that I spend 99% of the time writing down ideas, and it is just like 1 in 100 that's good. And if the idea is good, then they become very easy to write. And that's often the case with scripts. I'd imagine you find that too, is if you have a good idea, it's very easy to write that script or to show how it works on across different social media platforms, or however the idea manifests. And if the idea is bad, usually it's pretty hard, and that's a really good sign for whether you should pursue something or not. But I feel like I've started rambling. Samira, come help me. That's it.
Sorry, I'm still getting over the giant squid. I kind of needed that laugh this early on a Monday morning. Thank you.
Should I stop sharing my screen?
Yeah. We'll chat for a bit. I just want to remind everyone there is a Q&A box at the bottom of your screen. If you've got any questions for Owen, and really now's your chance, please pop them in there and we'll address them. Don't be shy. I've got loads of questions. My first is, at the end of the superhuman spot, how does that shot end? I don't know if anyone else was bugged by this, but I really want to see the end of that shot.
That is a good question.
What happens?
That is a good question. I think he goes into a load of foam, like a big foam pit, but I don't know if I just made that up in my own head. I will find out. But he does that.
It didn't do wonders for my anxiety, I have to tell you that. I mean, I think my big kind of takeout from this is I don't really know what I'm doing. I think as a creative, we all, experience that on a day-to-day. I've never gotten out of it, and it's really good to hear somebody else is in the same boat, and probably thousands and thousands of others out there. And the thing is, not many creatives are willing to talk about it. So that's brave in itself, going, you know what, we probably don't know what we're doing half the time, but if we're following the steps and we think through things, then we get there and we know what's good work and what's not. So thank you for that. I think, it's just testament to the fact that we do need to be brave, not only in our work, but, honest about how we go through that process and how we get to the great work at the end of the day. So, I mean, I definitely will take that with me. So you talk a lot about, how to be brave, but why should we be brave?
Well, first of all, I'm glad that you liked I Don't Know What I'm Doing. I mean, it's also, I think people want to pretend that they know all the answers quite a lot of the time, and want to, it seems like sometimes it's part of our jobs to be really confident, and that you can't say, I don't know. And part of that comes from you, but part of it comes from your team trusting you that enough that you can say, I don't know, or I'm not sure, or I haven't worked that out, rather than having to pretend that you know the answers. And we're quite lucky at Channel 4 that everyone's quite understanding and friendly and nice, and it's not like there's not a kind of blame culture or people trying to catch other people out. So I think that's also a really important part of being able to admit that you don't know what you're doing. You have to have people that support you in that. Why should we be brave? I guess if you're not brave, then you'll end up doing what everyone else is doing, and that's boring. And like fundamentally, the key aim of everything that we do is to make something stand out. And if you're not doing something brave, then you're not going to stand out. And so while sometimes it might be difficult to convince other people to do something brave, you've got to remind them that that's not just, sometimes it can feel combative, you know, like the creative wants to do something brave and the person with the money doesn't. But ultimately, both of you want to make something that stands out. So both of you are going to have to agree to do something brave. Otherwise, you're both going to fail. So it's just deciding what that brave thing is. Yeah.
And how easy have you found it to get buy-in on your risky ideas from marketing and commissioning teams? That's one of the questions from the audience.
Well, I think we're quite lucky that we work in the industry that we work in, because generally speaking, I think there's a lot. I've found there to be a lot more creative people in TV and in entertainment than in previous places I worked, where I was having to go to like the Weetabix factory to convince someone to do something brave. That's a lot more difficult than going to try and convince someone that works at your TV station, or you know, the production company that makes the TV show, because generally speaking, they understand that a bit more. So I think we're lucky to work in this industry. But look, it still has all the same frustrations, and the stuff I've shown you is the stuff that got made, and there's a whole lot more that didn't. And that's part of the job, is kind of rolling with the punches and trying to work out what risks people are willing to accept, and what they're not comfortable with, and how to present things in a way that present risk in a way that appeals to people. And the best thing, I worked with the director. This is a stupid example, but I worked with a director, and we were making a beer ad, and at the end of the beer ad, there was a hand holding the beer, like you always have it, like a hand went in and went, you know, the beer. And he said in the pre-production meeting, he was like, you know, if it wasn't a hand, if it was a skeleton, you'd see a lot more of your label, because you wouldn't be having all the flesh getting in the way. It'd just be bones, and you'd see more of your beer. So for no reason at all, we had a skeleton holding the beer at the end. But it's like, that's a risk. I know it's a stupid example, but that's like taking a risk. But there's a really good reason for doing it that's going to appeal to people. So it's like finding out what makes people tick and what's important to people, and then trying to engineer your bravery in that way is often a good trick.
So, I mean, you've showed us quite a lot of the work that you're obviously super proud of. That was incredible. Have there been any misses? What have you gone live with, super proud of, and then gone, shouldn't have done that?
Oh, yeah, lots. Actually, that beer ad was pretty bad. Apart from the skeleton hand. The issue that we have, as I'm sure that you guys have, I think advertising agencies have more money than we do maybe in our industry to create promos and things. So often, I think sometimes we try and do things that are too ambitious for the budgets that we have, is sometimes something that we're guilty of. And I think there's always a right idea that will work for the money that you have. There's always something good you can do, whatever the money, you know, whatever small budget you have. And I think sometimes when you try and stretch it too much, that's when it can get frustrating. Yeah, I think that's what I've found.
Another question from our viewers: what results came out from the human test campaign? Were you surprised with the results, and how were you able to tie that in to encourage people to tune in? P.S. The book sounds awesome.
Oh yeah, thank you. Yeah, the human test. Yeah, well, it was one of the most, or I think it was the most popular entertainment app on the voice experience on the Alexa and Google Home. So it was, a lot of people used it. It's tricky. I mean, the big difficulty is with doing that kind of stuff is like, how many people have access to that technology and how many people use it. And over half the households in the UK have one of those. But that still means your campaign is only, you've immediately cut out half the people that could be using using that that app. So what we try and do is make sure that if people aren't able to use it, that they hear about it So we got influencers to take the test and post videos online and post on social about it. So I think that's how we kind of overcame that hurdle. And there was a version of it that you could do just through your web browser. So with those kinds of tech first type things, it's just making sure that if not everyone can do it, make sure everyone can hear about it. And that means that it needs to be there needs to be a good idea behind it, or an amazing video of someone doing it, or an amazing image, or something shareable needs to come out of it if you can't do it yourself, I guess.
Perfect. All right, we're kind of coming to the end of our time. Thank you so much for sharing this presentation with us. I'm sure a lot of people got a lot out of it. I know I did. Just a reminder to everyone, these webinars occur roughly every 2 weeks. The next one is on the future of TV branding with Charlie Mawer from Red Bee Media, so please register for that. That's on Thursday, the 20th of August, and it's brought to you by DSTV and Mnet. Also, don't forget, awards open. Enter early bird prizes. Early bird prices are valid until the 21st of August, so take advantage of that. And then please continue sharing if you're enjoying it. Tell everyone about it. It's free to attend. And we will see you on the next one. Thank you, Owen, so much. Everyone have a great week. Take care.